Today we're making this great gift box, Beer on Ice. It's actually a die set from Tonic Studios and it's called Champagne on Ice because you can also make a champagne bottle. But today I wanted to try the beer bottles. The gift box is very spacious and it's the perfect gift for all the beer drinkers in your life. My name is Julia and I'm an enthusiastic card maker and paper crafter from Austria. Welcome to my channel, Julie's Kreativschatzkiste. So this is the die set we're going to use today. On the packaging you also see the champagne bottle you can make with it. The dies come with detailed instructions and there are a lot of dies for decorations as well. Alright, let's start with crafting the bucket. I first cut out all the pieces I need for the bucket. First there's this die for the sides of the bucket, which I need 10 times. I use brown paper to make it look like wood. For this piece, which is the top on the bucket, I use a combination of the big die with the tabs on the sides and the middle decagon die. The bucket lid is simply cut out of the largest decagon die. This decagon ring is a combination of the largest and middle decagon die. It's for the support of the bucket. And then finally, there's the bucket base, which is cut out of the smallest of the decagon dies. Further, you need this bucket lid base cut out 5 times of this die. In addition, you need the bucket top tab twice. This is this tab die with just 1 tab. So once again in the picture you see all the parts we need for constructing the bucket. I also want my bucket to be decorated. So before I glue the bucket together, I actually cut out the decoration pieces. There's this one die which cuts out plain layers for the outside of the bucket. Every time I want to cut out many dies at once, I use paper strips in a width that is appropriate for the dies I want to cut. And then I use my small die cutting machine for quickly cutting all the pieces out. Usually 2 dies fit on 1 paper strip. Once I'm done doing 10 of these pieces, I use the same die as for the plain white paper on a brown die, and then I use this verso die with the decorative swirls on it as well. So with the combination I get another layer for decorating my bucket. Again I need 10 pieces for my bucket sides. Once I'm finished with the die cutting, I can start putting the layers together. So first of all is the decorative layer, then there's this plain white layer, and then there's my bucket side base panel. For this construction of the bucket, I start with the bucket base, which is the smallest of the decagon dies. I burnish all the flaps on my bucket sides before I glue them on, and then the shortest of the flaps is glued to my bucket base. Actually on top of my bucket base. That's really easy to align, I have to say. Once I'm done with gluing, I cut out another of this smallest decagon die. This is not part of the instructions, but I thought it would be good, first for reinforcing the bucket base, and second for hiding and for securing the glue tabs. Now the long sides of the bucket side parts are glued together. So the glue tab of one side piece is glued to the next side piece. It's already looking really good, I think. Now it's time to reinforce the top of the bucket with the bucket support pieces. I have folded all the glue tabs to the outside, and now I put glue on top of this bucket support piece, and I put it below all the glue tabs of the bucket top. I use my sewing clips to hold that in place, and a good trick which I learned from Ruth Hamilton is to start on one side and next glue the tab exactly on the opposite. This way all the pieces fit perfectly. And while this is now drying, I can start working on my bucket top. I start with the big piece with the tabs on the sides, and I fold over all my glue tabs. Then I use the bucket tab tops, this small 2 tabs which I had cut out earlier, and I glue them down where the bucket has these 2 flaps, just 2 ears on the sides. There's also a fold line there, so the placing is not too hard. All the glue tabs on this paper piece have a little small glue tab on the side of them as well. I put glue on all of these and now put them together and secure it again with my sewing clips. For a good closure of my gift box, I attach 4 small magnets with the glue dots you see here on the bucket. The bucket top will then be glued on top of these, and the magnets are not seen anymore. And yet again, my sewing clips are very helpful for securing all these paper pieces together. I now start working on the bucket lid, for which I use the paper cut out with the largest of the decagon dies, and then these bucket lid bases, which are these double glue tabs, which I have glued into a chain. I then fold over all the glue tabs, and then glue the first and the last piece together as well to get a circle. The circle will eventually be glued to my bucket lid, and it fits the opening in my bucket perfectly at the moment. I used this to help me for my circle to stay in shape. I left it in the opening and put glue on top of the glue tabs, so my circle stays in perfect shape when I glue the bucket lid on top of it. When you're doing it that way, it's pretty easy actually. You just have to really take care that no glue bleeds out to the top of the bucket, because then everything would stick together and you won't be able to open your gift bucket. If you use magnets, this is the time to make sure that they are on the bucket lid as well. So I put them in place on top of the magnets I have already hidden in my bucket top. And in order to hide my magnets also on the lid of the bucket, I had to cut out another shape. And this piece I cut out with a combination of the largest piece with the tabs on the side and the middle one of the decagon dies. The resulting piece was of course too large, so I cut off all the tabs and flaps from the piece, and it was then the perfect size to reinforce my lid and to hide my magnets. Before I hide my magnets, I have to glue them down. So I put glue on the magnets, which are in place on the bucket on top of the other magnets. They will not glue down on the bucket lid that way, but the glue helps to make marks on the places where the magnets should go, and that way I finally can really glue them down on my reinforcement. And once that's done and all the magnets are in place where they should be, I can glue my reinforcement ring on the bottom side of my lid. It fits perfectly because it was cut out with the same dies. At this point it was time to close the lid of my bucket and then just put something heavy on it overnight. This really helps flattening out the bucket lid. And that's the base bucket finished, and you actually could use just that as a gift box already. However, we want to make the beer bottles on top of the lid. So once again I use my instructions to see what parts I need. The die I'm using now is the side of the beer bottles, and you need that 12 times, which is 6 for each of the 2 bottles. I first thought I need these 12 pieces for each of the bottles, so I have cut out way too many. Nevertheless, I can use them for another beer on ice gift box. So I start by folding and burnishing all the flaps on my beer side parts. Now it's time to glue the side parts together. 2 things worth mentioning, which worked really well for me, are first, make the right curves into the paper before gluing them together. So there's one curve at the bottom, which goes to the outside, and then there's another curve where the die gets smaller. If you train the paper beforehand, it's much easier to glue it down. The second thing which worked really well for me is to align and glue down the bottom first and then secure it with my sewing clips. And then I aligned and glued down the upper part, and the last part I glued together was the middle part with the curve in it. This part I held together until the glue was dry, so you need a little bit of patience there, but it's really worth it. This way the bottle formed really nicely. So when I did that with all my 6 sides and 2 bottles, the base form of the bottle was finished. I then folded over all the fold lines on the top and wanted to cut out the top of the bottle. First I didn't know which dies to use for this because there are 4 of these little hexagon dies, but I found out by trying that you will need the larger 2 of the hexagons for your beer bottle. The very largest is the beer cap top, which you need twice, and which we will cut out later of gold paper. The second largest hexagon die is the beer bottle top, which we cut out of green paper twice, 1 for each bottle. This is then simply glued to the top flaps of the beer bottle. Next I took out some matte gold cardstock from Craft Perfect, and I cut out all the parts which I need for the beer caps. These are the 2 mentioned hexagons, as well as this small die, which is the beer cap side, which you need 4 times, twice for each bottle. The construction of the beer cap is not that difficult. For each beer bottle, you need 2 of the beer cap sides. You just fold all the fold lines and the glue tab fold lines, and then you glue both the side pieces together and you get a circle. For me, the easiest way to glue that on top of our beer bottle was to take this chain, put glue inside and put it on top of the bottle already. And only then I glue the hexagon on top. Doing it that way, you don't have to wait until the glue on the mirror cardstock is dry, because it also sticks to the bottle already, and the form of the cap also fits perfectly to the bottle. Nevertheless, I put something heavy on it until it was dry to have the flat bottle cap in the end. The beer bottle wrap is the next part we are going to craft. For this we need 12 times this rectangle die, which is the beer bottle wrap die. I cut it out of cream white paper. There's also a decoration die for that, which says beer, which I cut out of red paper together with the outline rectangle die. Well, actually, I used the wrong die because I used the same die as for the sides of the beer wrap, but there is a fitting rectangle for the label included in the die set as well. Next, I glued together 6 of these beer bottle wraps on the glue tabs on the side. I didn't finish the circle yet because I want to decorate it as long as it is lying flat, because then it's easier. I already glued the label with the beer on top of one of these sides. Additionally, I made a decoration line with my dual dot markers in gold. Then it was time to glue the bottle wrap around the bottle. For this, I also didn't just finish the chain and put it on top of the bottle, but instead I glued it directly onto the bottle. Doing it this way, I'm sure that the bottle wrap will fit the bottle. Time for the finishing decoration of my bucket. The top of the bucket is currently brown, but I don't want my beer bottles to be stuck on wood directly. Instead, I want to have it look like there is water or ice inside the bucket. So I took some blue glitter cardstock and I cut out my decagon again. And then I colored the edges of the decagon in a darker blue to give it some dimension. This decagon is then glued directly on top of my bucket lid. The most fiddly parts of this die set are probably the bucket handles. The dies I use for this are the bucket handle die, which I need 4 times cut out, and the handle holder, which I need twice. All cut out of black paper here. I start by folding the fold lines on all the bucket handle circles. Then you need to glue 2 of these handle circles together. I start by gluing together the inside. There are glue tabs in the form of a rectangle and there are glue tabs in the form of a triangle. I put the glue on the triangles because they will be glued on the rectangle glue tabs of the other circle piece. So I now try to fit that exactly as it should be. So the rectangle glue tabs should be seen on the inside of the ring, and the triangle glue tabs will be glued on the inside to the rectangles. I hope you understand what I mean. Once that is dry, the rest is easy. You put glue on the rectangle glue tabs on the outside of one of the rings and fold the rectangle glue tabs of the other side of the ring on top of it to glue it together. As I said, it's a little bit fiddly, but it's really worth the result because the ring looks really great. While that is drying, I put the handle holder together. There are a lot of fold lines to fold there. There's this circle in the middle, and attached to it are 2 paper strips on the right and on the left. One is shorter than the other, and you will use the shorter one first. You fold the half circles upwards and put glue on the glue tabs of one of the half circles. Then you fold the shorter of the paper strips on top of it, and ideally you wait until that is dry. Next you fold up the other half circle and put glue on the bottom of the glue tabs and glue it to the arch you already have. And finally you put glue on the entire arch and glue down the longer of the paper strips on top of it all. For adhering the handles to the bucket, you put the bucket handle inside the bucket holder and use glue just on the squares of the handle holder, and that is then adhered to the bucket lid. The final die cut pieces you will need are the ice cubes. You need the ice cube die twice for 1 ice cube. I folded all the fold lines for the glue tabs. one of the glue tabs attached to the square piece of the ice cube die you need to cut off, but just on one of the two dies. Then you can glue it all together. Before I glue this ice cube to my bucket, I glue the beer bottles down first, to have the right placement for the ice cube then. There was a slight problem along the way, because my ice cube mirror cardstock didn't want to stick to my glitter cardstock. I solved that problem by using hot glue. For imitating the water drops on the ice-cool beer bottles, I used crystal glaze. I think I saw that idea also on a Tonic video. When doing so, I start at the bottom of my drops and move my crystal glaze upwards. That way the drops are thicker on the bottom and thinner on the upper side and look more real. And while I was at it, I also made some drops on my water on my glitter cardstock. And this is the beer on ice gift box finished. I hope you like it. I really enjoyed making it. If you like my video, please consider subscribing to my channel or leave me a like. Let me know in the comments if you have bought this die set Champagne on Ice by Tonic Studios. Servus, until next time!